Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm gonna break down this entire insane video studio setup, whatever you wanna call it. Essentially, it's a small studio with a desk that is designed to crank out YouTube videos and all the training content that I do over at academy.dslrvideoshooter.com, and how over the last 10 years, I've been slowly developing this crazy setup. Timestamps and everything mentioned will be down in the description. I've also written an article on this entire setup in depth, so if you want to read more about it and get some more nitty-gritty information, check that out. Nobody's sponsoring this video, but this video is supported by those of you who have purchased my camera guides and LUTs. Check the link in the description to learn more, and thank you guys so much for all of the amazing support. Okay, so let's kick things off by talking about the room that I'm currently in. This part of the studio is 16 by 18 feet or 288 square feet. While this is a larger space, you can totally take everything we're going to talk about and scale it down to fit your needs. Looking at everything here, you'll immediately notice how dark it is, and that is primarily due to all of the sound blankets. For sound treatment, I've gone exclusively with Producer's Choice sound blankets. They're not a sponsor, but I love using their products, and I have for years and years. I've tried foam, I've tried sound panels, but these blankets have been the best bang for buck when it comes to results and the fact that you can just get more for your money. And if you take anything away from this video, let it be that spending money on acoustic treatment is going to do more for your videos than just about anything else. In parts of this space, I just have sound blankets kind of hung along the walls. And then in other parts, I have these rolling sound blankets that I've done another video on. You can check that out. But they allow me to partition off this corner space, make it more intimate sounding and smaller. You don't want big, wide open, hard surface spaces. Across the ceiling, I've run even more blankets. I love the way it looks very seamless, but you can also go out and buy 2x4 tiles that work great with little S hooks, and you can totally go that route. With the room and treatment talked about, let's move on to the desk itself. This is an uplift desk. It's definitely overkill, and I have also wrapped it with some vinyl, so it's a nice gray, which I prefer. You don't want black necessarily because it's super dark, but if you go with a white desk, you get a lot of fill underneath your chin. So I found this kind of gray vinyl worked out really well for kind of something in between. From this reverse camera, you can kind of see the layout of the desk here. I have various things across the back that I need to be able to grab. And then you'll also notice I have folded against the back of the desk here another one of those sound blankets, because guess what? This is a hard reflective surface, and if I'm speaking, it's going to be bouncing around. So I folded up this blanket, put it on the back, and that's going to grab some of those reflections of my voice bouncing off of this desk and going to kind of soak them up and kill that reflective sound, which is great. Next, let's talk about the cameras I'm using. For the main camera, we have a Sony a7 IV with a Sony 35mm f1.8, and I also have a Black Promise filter 1/8 filter on the front to kind of soften things up just a little bit and add a little bit of diffusion, and that's the main camera. Now, if I were starting over today, I would just have all of the same exact camera, but since I talk about other brands and whatnot, I kind of have a mix. Now, as you can see from the monitor off in the corner, I have several other camera angles that I can switch to, and we'll talk about this whole monitoring and switching situation in just a little bit, but I want to show you the individual camera angles first. So here we have my top-down camera angle, and this is just very simply another angle that I can use if I don't want to capture B-roll and overlay that over my A-roll or the talking head footage. So if I wanted to still have really good audio from my microphone and talk about this Mikey lens and how much I enjoy it, I can just do that with this camera angle. And it's also a zoom lens. This is a Tamron 28-75 2.8, so I can kind of change how things work there. And for the overhead camera, I am using a C-stand, a boom arm, and on the end of that, we have a rabbit baby and a ball head, and that gives me a super solid, sturdy way to boom the camera over. I threw the GH6 on the desk here to show you another camera angle that I have, and this is usually used for my camera guides. So if you've purchased my guides in the past, you're very used to seeing me here, and we're talking about the camera, we're going into the menu system, we're going over settings, and all that good stuff. So it's great to have another camera angle over here. Now let's get to one of my favorite parts of this setup, and that is the monitoring solution that I've developed over the last 10 years. And it's taken a long time to put this together, but I absolutely love it. And you'll see in a second how amazing it is. So we have two monitors here, as you can see. One on the left is set up with a multi-view using an A10 mini. We'll get to that in a second. And the one on the right is just a spare monitor that I can run another feed to if I just want to have a dedicated camera angle. So you can see that this wide shot behind me, I have that pulled up and dedicated on this monitor. At the heart of this monitoring solution, I am using an A10 Mini Pro ISO. Now you could go with the A10 Mini Pro if you don't need to record your camera angles, but as you can see from this multi-view setup, I'm actually recording right now and recording all of these different camera angles. It's a fantastic backup. I already screwed something up on this video, and I know I can just grab the files off of this SSD that is connected to the A10 Mini Pro ISO. I moved my GH6 over here to show you the actual A10 Mini and show you how I use this for monitoring. So as you can see over here, we have the main monitor with all the different camera angles, and I can press 1, 2, 3, and 4 and pull up and queue up all these different angles and see what's going on. But on the A10, I can actually switch from multi-view over to program view, and now I have a full screen display of just that camera angle. Again, I can switch back and forth and see what's happening, like this crazy angle, and make sure everything is working just fine on each camera angle. So it's a fantastic way for me to quickly switch camera angles, check to make sure everything's working, and it has the added bonus that I'm able to actually record each of these camera streams as a backup. And these monitors are just basic computer monitors that I've purchased over the years. You could easily get something more affordable from like BenQ and go with a 1080p display instead of 4K. This is just what I happen to have. And both of those are mounted to a bunch of random stands, but in short, you can go out and get a VESA mount to light stand adapter and make sure you have a heavy duty stand that'll hold these, and then you can mount them however you want. You'll also notice that they are down low and off to the side, and that is because I wear glasses. So the idea is get the monitors down and kind of out of the way so I have less reflections to deal with in my glasses. All of that is only half of this monitoring setup. Really, the thing that makes it super special and really versatile is the patch panel that I have down to my lower right here. In short, this is a ton of HDMI pass-throughs or couplers, so female to female HDMI, and I have everything in this studio setup run to that patch panel, and it allows me to quickly make connections. As an example, let's say I want this overhead camera to run over to that monitor on my right. Traditionally, I'd have to get a new cable, plug it into this camera, run it over, and hook it up to the monitor. But this camera and that monitor are already hooked into this patch panel. So all I have to do is take a 6-inch HDMI cable and connect those two HDMI inputs and outputs over here on the patch panel. And here's a shot of that patch panel without any cables connected, so you can kind of get an idea of how I have things organized. The way I broke things down is the top row is the from row and the bottom is the to. It is so invaluable having a setup like this in any kind of studio environment. Now, when it comes to implementing or building this, it's really straightforward. You can go out and buy a rack mount wall bracket, and it's designed to go on a wall, but you can mount it underneath your desk. From there, I got two rack mount keystone panels, and keystones is kind of a system of adapters or connectors that can go into wall plates and things like that. From there, you can go out and buy the HDMI keystones and they just snap in place. Or you can switch over to the D series system, which will work with XLR, SDI, and so many other connections. Before we get to audio and lighting, let's talk about power briefly. On my left, I have another rack mount system for all power for this entire setup. The bottom power strip has a switch all the way to the far left, and that one switch controls everything. So it'll turn on and off the monitors, lighting, camera. I can also plug anything into that outlet on the front. If I need to power something on the desk, I don't have to run a cable. I can just plug it in right there. Just above that, I have another rack mountable power strip, but this one has switches on the front, outlets on the back, so that I can run certain things to this bar and be able to turn them on and off individually. For example, this first switch is my key light if I wanted to turn it off and show the background, and then two custom 3D printed, essentially camera patch panels that I'm not going to get into. Next up, we have audio, and we're going to start with the source or the microphone, and it is the MKH416 from Sennheiser. Fantastic microphone. It's around $1,000, and I get that it's very expensive, but if you just want to buy a microphone and just be done for life, this is a great one to go with. there are, of course, way more budget-friendly options, and I've done a whole video on shotgun microphones that you can check out if you want to save some coin. The microphone is then mounted to a Rycote stand, and from there connects to my Rode PSA-1. What I love about having it on this microphone arm is that I can simply grab the microphone and move it if I need to. And it's great if you change your framing because you can see the microphone in your shot and simply grab it and move it up and out of the shot just like that, instead of having a boom pole where you have to move a stand and it's never quite right and you have to keep walking back and changing it. I love this system, and I've done a video on this that you can check out. It's a little older, but it'll get you through building something like this. From there, the Rode PSA attaches to a 20-inch grip arm connected to a grip head, which sits on another C-stand. From there, the XLR cable is run from the microphone to my MixPre 3. And the MixPre 3 can be difficult to find, but if you can afford it, Sound Devices make some incredible audio recorders and preamps. The sound is super clean. They're wonderful devices to use, and all of that is mounted on my assistant's little station. But when I'm solo shooting, I can have the MixPre 3 mounted right in front of me so I can make sure audio is recording. And then we have lighting. Now, I've gone with all aperture lights, not because they've sponsored the video, but because they have a feature that makes them amazing to use in a system or an environment like this. So we'll get to that here in a second. But first, we've got the key light, which is an aperture 300x and a giant 60-inch parabolic softbox. A lot of you know that I really like large modifiers because it gives you such a soft light. So that's the key light. Usually I don't have a fill. So right now I have this whiteboard here. So normally that is gone. And instead of looking like this, it would look like this with a little more negative fill on my left side. Then for the background, we have a lot going on. So we have a lamp with an aperture B7C that I can change the color temperature on and whatnot. I also have a T2C down in the corner just to add a little bit of interest down there. And then I have a little forest of background lights, and it looks like a crazy situation with these two stands, but I'm going to walk you through each light and why I am using it. So we have 4 lights on the background. The first is an Amaran 60D. I love those little lights firing into an acrylic mirror, and I've done a video on shooting with mirrors, and that's giving us this kind of fake window reflective light right here. The next background light is an Amaran 100D, another great budget light, shooting through an aperture spotlight mount, and that has a gobo in it with a window kind of frame, and you can see that on this wall over here. It kind of makes it look like there's moonlight coming through a window and, you know, spilling across the wall. Or you could simply cut out a fake window in a piece of cardboard and shoot a light through it. The third light is another 100D. This time it's skipping across the floor just to brighten that up and bring that level up a little bit. Otherwise it's kind of a black hole back there. And the final light is an Amaran 60C LED panel, and that's kind of bringing the entire level of the wall and the room up. So it's just hitting the entire wall. It is a bi-color and RGB light, so I could switch it to different colors if I wanted to create a really wild look. And the reason I use all these aperture and Amaran lights is because they all work with the Sidus Link app, meaning that I can program in different level and different color temperatures for each light and save them to different groups. As an example, here is what the night setup looks like, where I have kind of a cooler background and a warmer foreground, but with one tap, I can switch over to a day setup. Finally, each of these lights either can turn on and off with a power strip or has the studio mode built in, which essentially allows the light to automatically turn itself back on once AC power is supplied to the light. That means once again, with a single switch, I can turn the entire studio on. As for how I rigged those lights up, check a blog post that I'll have linked to in the description where I talk about all the little gizmos and grip equipment to build that whole setup. And I just want to say, if I was starting over today, honestly, I would mainly be using Amaran lights, that 100D, the 100X, and the 60D and 60X lights. They're really affordable, so much cheaper than the Aperture 300X and things like that. So that's gonna wrap up this insane setup that I built for making YouTube videos for filming courses. If you have any questions, let me know. Check out the links in the description and that full blog write-up. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.